about Google Forms. I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks that you might not yet know when working with Google Forms. Google Forms can be used for students for you to collect information from a variety of different things. You could use them as quizzes, you can use them as just an assignment, you can use them for surveys, you can check in on students, social, emotional, at the end of the day, at the end of the week. You can use them for pre-assessments, exit tickets, checks for understanding, digital sign-out sheets, reading of library books, checking for understanding on completion and reading of library books. Lots of different things. They're super easy to create and use. Couple of things you might not know. When you go into your Google account, if you go to the waffle and you scroll down to click on Google Forms right here, it will take you to a different look. Across the top, this is a template gallery. And if you click right here on the template gallery, you can see some general templates that have already been made for education, such as exit ticket, assessments, worksheets, course evaluations, all types of different things that you could find there. You could even start with one of these if you just like the background and the way that it's set up, and use it and then adjust it. If you create a template and something that you want to do, you can click on Robinson ISD and submit template, and then it would be available for everybody in Robinson ISD to use. So that is one thing. The first thing that I'm going to also show you today is that you could use it for a pre-assessment and or to check for understanding and differentiate instruction within your classroom. So I've set up a basic Google form and I've asked a multiple choice question. When you ask a multiple choice question, you have an option to make it required, and you also have a branching option to go to a section based on an answer. So what I did simply is I added a section with this double icon right here, which looks like it's adding a section, which will take them to a new page. And then that gives me the option, when I choose go to section based on answer, to decide where I want them to go. The correct answer to this question is Canyon. So I have students going to section 3, which is question number 2 on this pre-assessment. And if they missed this, I have them going to section 2, which is going to have them watch a video about a canyon. So if they didn't know how a canyon was formed and they missed this, it will automatically take them to watch this video. When they complete this, it will just let them continue to the next question, where I have another question. And again, I can now go to section based on answer, and you can see that I have them going to section 4 and look at a picture about dunes, or go to section 5, which is question 3. So then on this one, I added a picture. You can add a video, you can add a picture, you could add text, anything that you want them to have to do or read. You could even add questions to this section if you wanted to. And then you could continue to go on with this. So this could be used as differentiate instruction as a review for an assessment. It could be used prior to, as I did with a pre-assessment. So if next week I know I'm starting a new unit, I want to give this to them this week so that I can see where they are and hopefully build some background knowledge instead of taking away from class time. Maybe they're doing this at another time during stations, or maybe they've completed a quiz or a test, or maybe I'm not there that day and I want them to do this and have some instruction to build background knowledge before we come together next week. So again, that's creating something differentiated within the lesson. One of the other things that you can do if you want to make this a quiz is, and I did it on this one, it's not really a quiz, but you could make it one. I went in under settings, and there's a few things you can do here. You can go under presentation and you can shuffle the question order. So that's one thing that you can do, is shuffle the question order. Under quiz, you can make it a quiz. You can give them the grade immediately after they have completed it, or you can look at it manually and turn it on then. You can also choose what you want them to see. Do you want them to see the missed questions, the point values, the correct answer, or you don't want them to see You want them to see the missed question but not the correct answer. You can also turn on this locked mode right here, and whenever that lock mode is on, it will make them take the quiz, and if they're on a managed Chromebook, it will not let them open other tabs. One of the other neat things that you can do is this confirmation message right here under presentation. So maybe after they take this quiz, you want them to do something special or go to a certain website. And so instead of it just saying, thank you for submitting this, you can change this message to be whatever you would like it. So for this one, I put, you've completed your quiz, now read your library book. So anything like that. So it shows you shuffle question order. The other thing that you can do is you can shuffle option order. So if it's a multiple choice question and you're worried about students cheating, you can shuffle question order, but you can also click on the 3 dots right here and you can shuffle the option order. And so it would be the options, A, B, C, D, whatever you have there, would also be in a different order. You can also do something called prefill options. So in the event that you wanted to do a peer evaluation of someone, you wanted each of your students to maybe complete it as students are presenting, or there could be any other reason why you'd want a portion of your Google form to be pre-filled. You can go over here to the top corner, 3 dots, and you can see Get Prefilled Link. So I'm going to click on Get Prefilled Link, and it's going to take me to look like I'm completing this form. I want to go ahead and say that tomorrow, Willie Thomas is going to present, and I want him to be evaluated. And so I don't want my students to have to fill in the date or the name of the student. I only want them to evaluate what they're doing when they're speaking. So I'm going to go down to the bottom, and instead of submit, it says get link. Now that is copied to my clipboard, copy link, and then I could go into Schoology or Google Classroom and put Willie Thomas's name, highlight it, hyperlink, and insert the link, and it would take my students to this peer evaluation pre-filled form. So that's Willie Thomas's. Then I'm going to go back in here, click right here, get pre-filled link. Now, tomorrow, I also want James Hughes to be evaluated. We're going to have 2 presentations tomorrow. I'm going to get the link, copy it, and I'm going to add James's name to the agenda for tomorrow in my class. And whenever students click on his name, it will take them to James Hughes' peer evaluation, and they won't have to remember to type in his name. So that is the pre-filled option for evaluating or anything that you might want to be pre-filled within a form for students. So as other forms that you could use for teachers, they could track student information, you could collect data on students, you could use it even just to check to make sure that you call on certain students and how they then respond. So you could even create one with a list of all of your students in your first period class or your first group, and you could sit up there with something similar to this, like a running record where I put the names in, and you could choose the student's name. Did they answer the correct question, yes or no? And then you would have a list every day of who you called on that day, to where at the end of the week you could ensure that you called on every student in class whenever you have any type of mini lesson or whole group instruction. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So I've made just a general Google form. This question is a drop down because you have different types of questions. So I made a drop down question in this. I made a short answer. This type of question right here is a linear scale. So I'm doing this as though I'm doing a running record, which is something we do for early reading students. And I've already completed it a few times. So if I've got my form up, a fast and easy way for a teacher to complete it is to hit this preview button right here. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to choose Leslie Rowe. She's reading 65 words per minute and only 4 errors. She needs to be in a top reading group. She knows all of her sounds, and I asked her to find the rectangle and she pointed to the correct one. So I'm going to hit submit. I could click right here and submit another response and just go to my next student. That's as easy if I'm just calling up a student at a time. So I'm going to leave that and I'm going to go back to my running record. Now I have 4 responses, and you can see my 4 responses, and you can see everything at a glance in this way. You can also see individual responses. So I could go through each of my students individually, but I can also create a spreadsheet. And so I'm going to show you a neat trick with this. So I'm going to create my spreadsheet, and there's all of my student information. Now I can sort and add filters of any of this type of information as well. If I go right here and I want to filter, I can create a filter. And it created a filter on every one of these. So I might only want to see the students that do not know their sounds. There are my students that do not know their sounds. I might only want to see students that have 4 or less errors. So that's what that could do. So you could sort in any way that you wanted to and take those filters on and off. That's one way you could also sort them. So another really neat way is I'm going to go right here now, and I'm going to go to my summary, and I'm going to click up here at the top. And I am going to delete all responses on this form. So I did my running record. It was October. I'm deleting all my responses. But they're still in this form over here. Okay? Then I'm going to go here. I'm going to go back to my questions, and I'm going to start filling this form out again because it's January, and I need to evaluate everybody's reading rate again. So I'm going to submit another response, choose Amanda, just filling in some random things here, and I'm going to submit another response. So now when I go back here, I have 2 responses again. So the really cool thing is that I can choose to view my responses in Sheets again, and it's going to pull them in. But I can also go here and I can select a response destination. So you saw when I created the spreadsheet, it just added them to the bottom. But what I can do is select an existing spreadsheet and hit select. And I can choose running record and hit select. Now whenever I refresh this, you can see at the bottom I have 2 form responses. So this is what I had previously. And so this is, I'm going to rename this tab to October running record. And then this is my January running record, and I'm going to rename it to January running record. And so instead of having a separate spreadsheet every time and having to create new forms every time, I can have the same running record all year. I can have the same form for checking for completion of reading a book. I could have the same form for anything that I want students to complete, and it can go into the same Google Sheet for the entire year. And so instead of it having to be a new Google form every time and a new sheet every time, I can choose the destination of where I want that to go, and it'll create a new tab in the same Google Sheet every time. Other things that are neat to do is if then I wanted to send this information home in October, I use an add-on. My favorite add-on is called Save as Doc, and I can hit Start. And I could include the headings across the top if I wanted to, or I could not. And then I can add a page break, which I always do after each row, so it puts each person's information on a separate page. I'm going to select all of my data. I'm going to save as doc. Oops, I need to name it. Save as doc. I'm going to open the doc, and now each of my information for my students right here is on a separate page. So had I chosen for the header rows, it would have said words per minute. Include the headings, select the data, save as doc. So you can see it that way as well. So you can either choose to keep those things or not. So there's my student name, words per minute, number of errors, knows all sounds, knows all shapes. there's my next student on the next page. So then all I have to do is print this, and it's something I could send home. Whenever I do this, I oftentimes add an image or something to the front. So you would do that. Look at Google Docs. I know it's covered in that session of how to add an image and make it look the way you want, and then you could just copy and paste that image across the top of each of those and hit print, and then you could send that information home with them. It could be the print for the student for their peer evaluations. It could go home to parents, anything like that. You can also use this for classroom voting. Students could create a Google form and collect information, and then they would see it in the graphs or create graphs based on the information that they collect. You could also have students complete a breakout with a Google form. So there are lots of different ways that you could use Google Forms, and I hope that you learned something new, a tip or trick to using a Google form.